You're listening to the Live from the Caribbean podcast, the show that brings you the stories of island people making a global impact. With your host, Pauline Joseph.
So, Tobias, for those who are just joining us, I literally went up the highest elevator I've possibly experienced to have this interview. So this has been a death-defying experience as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure for everybody else on an everyday basis and everybody in this building, this is normal. But as you guys know, coming from the Caribbean, I'm accustomed to one floor. So enough about me. Do you want to introduce yourself, Tobias, and share with people what you do?
My name is Tobias 𝐋𝐢𝐯𝐶. I am a food and beverage manager at Facebook, based in Singapore. I currently look after the Asia Pacific region for the company and the EMEA region, which stands for Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Wow. So how many countries are those?
So country-wise, 40.
Do you oversee?
I oversee 40. I have a team, so it's not just me. I oversee 40 countries, yeah.
Okay. That's amazing. That's a lot of work.
It is. I mean, I enjoy it, so some days it doesn't feel like as much, but it's a lot of work.
Wow. Okay. All right. You want to let us know how this came about? What was
so I'm in the food and beverage industry, but I never always started in the food and beverage industry.
Okay.
I actually have a major in events management. That's, how I got the job in general. I started as an event coordinator.
Where was
at
this?
The company at Facebook. I started as an event coordinator. My experience has been in events, so I studied events at uni, events management, finished one on top of the class. I took some time out after I was learning language, so I was studying Spanish.
Okay.
I lived in Spain for a little while, going from the UK to Spain. So I studied in the UK. When I came back to the UK, I was aggressively applying for jobs. I had kind of set the standard in my head of the type of job and level I was looking at.
Wait, LinkedIn was around then? Did you use LinkedIn?
LinkedIn was around then, yes.
Okay.
I did use LinkedIn.
Okay.
So it's funny you say that because I actually was headhunted on LinkedIn.
Wow.
But even taking a step back, I spent about 3 or 4 months really aggressively applying for jobs and got to a pretty low time where I'd, come back from Spain and had this first-class degree, all this experience.
And you're just thinking the world is ahead of you.
I'm like, come on, give me something. It was really hard to get my foot in the door with anything, really. And, this opportunity came up via LinkedIn. It was a contingent worker role, so it wasn't like a role as a actual Facebook employee. It was more outsourced.
It was like a contractor?
Yeah, it was a contractor role, yeah. I was overqualified for the role. I still took it. As you do, getting your foot in the door and whatnot.
Yes.
I impressed people. I just kind of did the job as best as I could.
Probably a little bit more too.
Trying to really show what I'm capable of in other areas, and managed to connect with the right people internally. At the same time, I had a very deep interest in nutrition and special diet. I just a year prior, when I moved to Spain, changed my diet. I was brought up vegetarian, but I started to follow a plant-based diet, so a vegan diet, and just with that comes a wealth of research and knowledge, so I had this interest, and the catering manager for the Europe region at the time noticed that. I noticed I had a good relationship with a lot of senior people in the office, and there was a role going for a food and beverage manager locally in London. He took a chance on me to take that role without any real kind of, restaurant management experience, food and beverage experience. It was just more that key knowledge, that customer service experience.
Yeah.
I owned it. I owned that role, and it's been a upward journey ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a story. That's a great way to start this interview because, I can relate so much to just doing what needs to be done until you get the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that sounds like. So break down for us what exactly is your role, because I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking those cook shows where people have to manage restaurants all over. The other day, I saw this guy, Gordon Ramsay's feast. He has a restaurant here.
Yes.
Because it's so funny how he's become his own brand. So the idea is, on a day-to-day basis, what is your role and what is the biggest thing that you have to manage?
Okay. It's a loaded question because my roles changed a lot in the time I've been here. As I mentioned, I started off in London, and really then my role was to manage the culinary amenities in our office. So to give context, obviously we know Facebook is not a restaurant company. It's a social media company. And what it is internally, there are, for our larger offices, they have cafes, they have what we call micro pantries or micro kitchens, sometimes coffee shops, etc. Just extended culinary services, which acts as a amenity benefit to the employees. So it's internal facing. There's no kind of charge for it. It's a benefit.
Yeah.
But benefit or chargeable or no chargeable, it needs to be managed, right? Just really managing the provision for the cafe side and the micro kitchen side, acting as two separate services. Cafe side being, we're catering 3 meals a day, 5 days a week.
Everybody?
To everyone. We're changing the menu.
I'm just going to go and check and see if there are any jobs available right now, but carry on.
We're changing the menu every day.
Okay.
So there's a lot of creativity that needs to go into the menu planning. There's a lot of, catering for special diets and nutrition and etc. As we're not a high street restaurant where you kind of pick when you want to go there.
Yeah.
You're catering for the same audience day in, day out. So that means you're trying to cover people with diabetes, people that are gluten-free, people that are vegetarian, people that halal. So you need to be able to cater to these people equally, or at least feel like they're being treated equally, because it's a benefit. So there is that side, and then the micro pantry side, which acts as kind of this snack stop, for beverages or snacks or coffee throughout the day. So in London, it started off with London, managing that amenity in London. And really, although Facebook has been around for quite a while, it's still a relatively new company. So as the growth is, quite substantial, we're kind of really cementing our procedures. So I was tasked with really kind of, managing this now. Let's really get some policies there. Let's get some structure. So London blew up, and, equally other offices around Europe started to blow up, and my manager kind of gave me responsibility of Paris, and then came Berlin and Hamburg, and then came Amsterdam and, other places there. And, it just started to grow. As it grew and I started to create some standards, some things started to kind of run itself. Other things needed more of my attention. So I started to do a bit more strategic stuff, a bit more project-based stuff. So whereas that my role entails the operational side, like I just mentioned, in terms of managing those components, it also covers the project side. So I actually work with the architects and the designers to help design and build these spaces, these culinary spaces, to kind of, from an operational standpoint, to really dictate what's needed there as well. So that was a big stepping stone for me. Again, an area that I have no experience in, architecture, the terminology used in these big video conference calls with consultants and, etc., was very alien to me, and very, really, quite intimidating. But I mean, being the person who I am, I asked the right questions, really admit when you didn't know what was going on, kind of say, like, hey, explain that to me. And it just grew, I managed to thrive in that environment. I had the right support, if I'm honest, from management, from family. Then I got to a place where, I was doing major projects in the UK, and the company felt that there was going to be a lot of growth in Asia, and that we could see that a lot of growth was coming in Asia, and they needed someone to go out to Asia to spend some time here to help grow the department from this side. So I came out here, and last year was very intense, a lot of intense travel. Asia's a very different place to Asia. Sorry, Asia's a very different place to Europe. And, the diversity in cultures is totally different. Japan is totally different to Korea is different to Thailand.
Elephant in the room, you're clearly going to stand out.
I mean, and not even just from my standpoint, just, I think I approached Asia from a somewhat closed-minded place,
That's honest of you.
I mean, I came here, and I think what people do, they group cultures. It's easier to digest,
But we get that from media.
Yeah, you get it from media, but also it's just easier for you to understand. If it's not a necessity for you to know something, you just see Asia.
Yeah.
A lot of people do it with Africa.
Oh my gosh, somebody asked me where I'm from, and I said Trinidad, and they asked me which part of Jamaica that was from. So it's like the southern side.
Well, people do that with the Caribbean a lot. And I know a lot of, there's this thing about, a lot of the Western world, not even the Western world, I think a lot of just outside of the Western world, I only really see Jamaica when you talk about the Caribbean. And it's
fantastic branding.
It's amazing branding.
Amazing. I mean, Bob Marley did it well for you. He did it well for you.
You got Usain Bolt carrying the baton, and what is it?
Literally and figuratively.
So you have a lot of that as well. But I mean, So I approached Asia from a somewhat ignorant place, but I was aware of that ignorance. So when I came here, I really kind of sought out, people that can help me understand the makeup of Asia and the different nuances within the cultures, and within my job, how they see and approach food. That's going to be a key component for me to be successful in my time here. So yeah, I mean, that's my journey here. It's been amazing. I've had the privilege of seeing a lot of amazing places I don't think I would have ever got an opportunity to see. It's really broadened my CV, my experience.
Better update that LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
I think. Hey, it's Pauline here to let you know about Regis. They have an amazing team in the Caribbean. They have been helping LinkedIn Local Caribbean from inception with locations in Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, and Guyana. I can assure you that is a place to go. As a small business owner, it's so important to have an alternative space outside of my home because the walls are closing in. Go check them out and tell them Pauline sent you. So I'm going to segue into that conversation about Jamaica because anybody listening, they're like, what are you talking to this man for? What the hell? He just have this really cool English accent. Like, what's his Caribbean background? So I think you need to let people know what your history, like where it all started.
So my makeup is quite unique. So I would identify as Black Caribbean, grew up in the UK. Caribbean heritage being more so my grandfather on my mother's side. He's from Jamaica.
Okay.
My granddad is from, so my grandma on my mother's side is from Carriacou.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I've been there once.
Yeah. I've never managed to make it there yet. I don't really know much of my family from that side.
You need to make some time.
I do. I mean, it's on the cards, definitely. Yeah. I mean, being on this side of the world now makes it a bit more tricky. But,
having a whole family, that's gonna be hard.
But so from Jamaica, from that side, I grew up with my mother and my stepfather.
Okay.
My stepfather is full Jamaican. He's born and bred Jamaican, and his family is he grew up in more Maypen area. He's got a place in Maypen. He's there now actually, and my family kind of was spread. His brothers and cousins are spread all over Jamaica in places in Spanish Town, in Kingston, and a few other places as well. My birth father, even though I hadn't really had the opportunity to really embrace his side of the family and where I am from a more blood relative perspective, he was born in Trinidad. But my grandparents from his side, they met in Trinidad, and he was born in Trinidad, but they're actually from other places in the Caribbean as well.
Wow.
So it's very kind of interlinked.
Your character man
it's hard to So my grandfather on his side is from Guyana, and my grandmother on his side is from Barbados. They migrated to Trinidad. When they were quite young, they spent a lot of time in Trinidad, and my birth father was born in Trinidad.
Okay.
But I don't really know him to that extent. The reason I identify as Jamaican is I really did take Black Caribbean by Jamaican descent, more so because of my grandfather from my mother's side and the family that I know there from that side, and also from my stepdad, as I did spend a lot of time back and forth in Jamaica with him and his family, and Caribbeans are and family, and everyone's
of course. It's like, that's your son, come true.
It's my cousin, my uncle, when I was younger, I did go back and forth to Jamaica quite a bit.
So where's your mom from?
My mom was born in the UK. She was born in the UK.
And her parents, they're the ones
parents
from...
are my granddad so her dad is from Jamaica.
Right.
And her mom is from Carriacou.
Right. You did mention that. Oh, she was born in the UK. So they moved to the UK.
They moved to the UK, yeah. And my mom was born in the UK.
Okay. All right. So you identify as Jamaican roots.
Jamaican roots. So it's interesting because in the UK, and I have this conversation with a lot of people from the US, actually. In the UK, a lot of people that of African or Caribbean descent tend to identify as that African or Caribbean culture, largely because with the migration that happened a lot of the migration that happened in the UK versus the US, a lot of the migration that happened in the UK was voluntarily or by, let's call it bad marketing, the Windrush generation, coming,
for the better life.
yeah, exactly. Coming to the UK and actually retaining a lot of their culture around food, around language, around music, and so it puts third generation Caribbeans and sometimes Africans in this situation where, am I Caribbean? Am I British? I don't really feel 100% either, So, I mean, I can say that I'm Caribbean to someone in the UK.
Yeah.
But
they understand that.
They understand that.
Okay.
And they accept that. But do I feel comfortable saying I'm Caribbean to someone from the Caribbean?
No. We're just going to look at you like...
Exactly.
Identity crisis, man?
Exactly. And I think this is one of those legacies, right? It's one of those identity things that people that are Black Caribbean, Black British, Black African kind of fall... I don't want to say victim to, because they don't feel like victims.
No,
it's not really fall prey to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I mean, from my personal experience, because my mom is from Barbados and my dad's from Trinidad, I've always felt like I belong to both, but I don't belong to both. Because when my parents split, it was like, I want my child. So I was in Barbados talking a Trini accent for a while, so I shifted to Bajan accent in primary school. And then they were like, oh, the Trini girl, and then I'd go to Trinidad with my half Bajan accent, and then I switched back and they're like, oh, the Bajan girl. So that identity crisis, it's like this society believes that we have to identify with one.
I know. And again, I think it falls back to this, it's just easier to group people.
It is. It's for our mind to process. It's for our mind
to process it. And
true. You're right.
Does that create a challenge? I mean, for some people, for me, it kind of does to some regard, because then it means I have to box myself into something, and then that thing is not 100% correct, no matter what I box it into.
Yeah. That's some real PhD kind of couch scenario that I don't think we have the time for. But
yeah, it's all good. So I mean, that's my short answer to a long question.
No, but I appreciate it, because I can reflect on that conversation, and I can see it, and I feel like I'm part of something bigger, because I thought I was by myself with that thought process.
Yeah,
and it's in this environment, and there's so many mixtures, so I could see why. Yeah, that's a good one. So we kind of went into your path as you've created for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea of anybody else in the Caribbean doing what you're doing?
I have a lot of family in the Caribbean. I mean, I'm just trying to think. There's one or two people, not in my industry, but people doing international work, I would say. I mean, I'm in a very unique situation. My international work is quite vast in terms of what I cover. I don't know much people that are doing that to that extent. In Singapore, I've met a lot of Caribbean people that, again, are doing international work. Most work in Singapore is international, just due to it being islands and and whatnot. In the UK, again, there are more Caribbeans doing international work. So I mean, yeah.
Have you ever met somebody from Caribbean on Facebook and they're like, "Hey, wagwan boy,"
from the community on Facebook?
From Facebook, like people who work in Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, I come to Singapore. There is a very small amount of Black people in let alone Caribbean people. There's a very small amount of Black people in
I know,
in Facebook.
I'm very conscious of that.
One of the very it's interesting stories. I came here my first day. I'm walking around the office doing the little tour and whatnot, and we have this culture where we hang up flags from where we're from on top of the desks, in one of the older offices. And I was walking around and see all these flags from different places, and I saw a Jamaica flag. And I didn't see anyone, no one was sitting at the desk. And I'm like, there's a Jamaican here. I don't know who he is. I don't know out of how many people in the office. And it turns out, now I'm really good friends with him. His name's Sean, but he's relocated from Jamaica directly here, which is a very big culture shift for him. He's an engineer. And I think that to answer your question, when you see someone, it's like, well, go on, what? And that was him. So I've met a few people.
So cool. Hey, it's Pauline here. I have done so many attempts at this ad because I have to do this because my business is actually financing this podcast. It's the sponsor, monetary wise. And to me, none of the ads make sense. So I'm just going to do this so I can tell my accountant that this was a marketing spend. Check out acmarketingcaribbean.com. If you want to know what we do, the fact that you're listening to this podcast means that we know what we do. So, well, you did mention about things going your way. Mm-hmm. So what do you do outside of this that gets you going? What's pushing you?
So I came here with my wife, mm-hmm. and we recently had a son.
Congrats.
Thank you.
I mean, do what you can for my generation, because we're not producing enough, I've been told.
Oh, man. I think my priorities have shifted a lot. A lot of things that I do are about him. I'm just like, I'm very focused person. And I think I'm very much focused at the moment on future planning, just really kind of, figuring out ways to set myself and my family up, to maintain a healthy, balance, life balance, and still doing the leisure stuff. But, we don't go out that often. If we go out, it's as a family to the park, enjoy a family day out, go to a restaurant maybe. I haven't gone to the movies.
More food?
I mean, a lot of my life revolves around food, if I'm honest. We love cooking. My wife loves cooking as well. So that's a lot of what we do.
How old is your son?
He's 6 months.
Oh, wow. He just reached.
Yeah,
what's his name?
Ezra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So would you say you're successful at that balance and finding that?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes, it's harder. I think, whereas my time sometimes gets taken away because of time zones, and how I have to work across time zones sometimes. Yeah. I'm a lot more strict with myself in finding that balance these days, because it doesn't matter really what company you work for or what job you do. At the end of the day, you need to look after yours and yourself. You need to really find that balance. So there's a lot of compromise people do make. Granted, sometimes you need to for financial restraints or whatnot, but we can't undermine the importance of really looking after yourself and for your family. So I'm really advocate for that, if possible, trying to squeeze that, if you're at work from, 8 till 6, make sure you're doing everything you can in that 8 till 6 bracket so you can actually switch off at 6. So that's you don't have
hard.
to, and I mean, that's very hard to do. And I think being in this part of the world with just me, my wife and my son, I have to really be very supportive of my wife, whereas we do not have the family network, that support network here. Yeah. So when I'm at work, I'm just, and I'm out because I need to make sure that I'm there.
That's diligent of you.
Yeah.
Well done.
It's not easy. I mean, there's some days that my wife will tell you, I have to open that laptop when she's asleep because I need to,
So I'm going to get a little personal here. Would say that we're talking about the dollars and cents. Would you say that you're well paid in your space?
I'm paid enough to feel valued.
That's so important. I love that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to quote that later. Yeah.
I'm paid enough to feel valued. And I think that's important. That's what keeps me happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been thinking about that lately. Yeah. What would be your tip for someone starting off listening to this and saying, you know what, I'm inspired. I want to be like Tobias.
Yeah. I think I'm good at what I do because I enjoy food. I enjoy understanding like the dynamics of food trends, food markets, food cultures, and it plays a part in what I do. And I think that if you can tie in what you do to a career prospect, if you can put yourself in front of opportunities that, are going to hopefully manifest into, bigger opportunities and then do it. But it has to that kind of glimpse of happiness there that, that what you love versus what, your career path. If you can intertwine those, then you kind of are organically successful. And your success is a subjective thing. It's how you measure its success, what your goals were to begin with. And just understanding that there's no ceiling or there should not be no ceiling on your success. If this is your success when you're 20, if you've reached that, you can stay there and be content, but you can move your success level if you want. It's all you. It's all up to you. So
that question, I'm just gonna go off topic here because I always have this personal in trying to understand the idea behind passion, because a lot of the times you have people spewing this idea of just love what you do and money will come.
I mean, I feel like action needs to be taken as well. I've done so many different jobs.
It sounds like you definitely...
I've just spoken about the jobs I've had at Facebook, but I mean, I've done everything from telesales to delivering pizza to what else have I done? I started with, delivering newspapers to, event promotion, the whole outside of the club, handing out the flyers.
Okay.
I've done all of that, putting on stage shows. And so I've gone through a whole host of different things. And each of those I've got some, transferable skill from.
Yeah.
Some things I've intentionally done to help me get to where I am. Other things, it's just been part of my journey, to get money or whatnot. So it's not just about doing what you love. Yes, that's the end goal, but the journey might not be that,
Gosh, it's up and down.
Yeah.
I could look in the mirror right now. Pauline here to let you know about Microsoft 365. As a small business owner, rent expense could be ridiculous for your bottom line. You need to understand what a cloud solution can do for your business. Not only does it reduce your cost, but it actually allows you to track the productivity levels of your team members. So go Microsoft 365. Trust me. You mentioned, how you've been to Jamaica, you've been to Guyana.
Yeah.
Your wife is originally from there, right? She was born there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts in the Caribbean? What are your thoughts in terms of how we can go further? Because as I was telling you earlier, I was completely clueless that Singapore was smaller than Trinidad, And I went to the museum yesterday and getting insight to the story and seeing what was done in such a short period of time. And then I look back at Trinidad and I go, so what, as someone who has this global perspective, but you have a Caribbean upbringing, what would you say, okay, this is one of the main things we should do to move forward?
Yeah. Oh man, it's
that's heavy.
that is. It's first of all, I don't think, even though Singapore has achieved a lot in its time since independence, but I do feel it's not a straight line. You can't compare Singapore as an island, country to somewhere in the Caribbean. Our histories are totally different. Even when we talk about independence, the grip that some of these colonial countries still have on the islands still hinder a lot of our progress as well. So there is things we can do, but we have to understand that there are other things that need to be done as well.
Yeah.
I think from a country perspective and development and growth, I think education is key. And I think a lot of the Caribbean know that. I feel like that's something I'm quite proud of the Caribbean. I feel like their curriculum is quite extensive. And I think a lot of the, at least from what my knowledge, a lot of the Caribbean is held at high regard for its education, so there is that. I feel like broadening your horizons and kind of understanding that you can think outside the box. There are typical jobs that are out there, but there's also entrepreneurial aspects, and living in the Caribbean where yes, it is developed to some extent, but in other extents there's other opportunities for you to make the development changes. I think that really looking at where you are in the Caribbean, what needs to be fixed. What can you, if you're from an entrepreneurial perspective, looking at what needs to be fixed. If you're from an employer perspective, kind of trying to get into a specific industry, what does that industry look like? Where you're from. There's no one answer I can give in terms of how to fix a country in the Caribbean. There's so many variables. I think it starts with each individual kind of, the more you know, the less marginalized your mind is, so I think kind of thinking outside of the box is the first step.
Yeah. So, because you've been to those, Guyana's on an island. We call ourselves all in the Caribbean. There's this idea behind CARICOM, right? A Caribbean community.
Yeah.
I have strong feelings that we don't follow that sense of community much anymore. And I feel that we need to drive that more. So from your personal perspective, being in all these different parts of the world, if you were the head of the Caribbean community, let's say next week, Monday, you have been appointed, what would be the first thing you would do?
I hopefully leverage what you guys are already doing. So I know about the CARICOM Festival, CARIFesta? Yeah, CARIFesta.
CARIFesta, yes.
And I leverage the marketing for that to really kind of try and unite a lot of the Caribbean islands, the Caribbean countries, you know, the CARICOM community, you know, in a space where they can really, you know, present their country and what their country stands for and really make that a thing to look forward to, but also where they have their individual representation, really kind of look at it from a CARICOM perspective as well, and really make that marketing external facing to the outside community, not just CARICOM, but so they can see it, you know, as the Caribbean community. Because I think it's okay to have a community, but when other people don't see you as a community, you're forced to become a community.
I know people are not seeing, but I am shaking my head vigorously because I am a strong believer that we need to make things more palatable. Yeah. Because we are too inward in how we present ourselves. So that I think that is a fantastic way to end. I just have one more question, and that is, what would be the advice you'd give it somebody from the Caribbean wanting to make a global splash? And global splash doesn't mean you have to be an entrepreneur. Everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur. It could be just wanting to apply at Facebook, maybe wanting to apply on a global scale. What would be the advice that you give them now, especially with what we have access to?
The internet, use the internet, definitely use it. I mean, your online identity is very important. If you're trying to seek something outside of, I mean, not even just outside of your home country, but like even within your home country, you have just more access to other things. So marketing yourself, learning how to market yourself is important. Things like LinkedIn, like, you know, your social media pages, but market yourself, figure out what you want to do in terms of your industry, shape your online profile so that it can represent that, and rigorously apply for that job. You know, really go for it. You know, look at the job spec. If you don't fit the criteria, what else can you do even outside of your industry so that you can put that as an experience kind of bracket? You know, take a few years out. If you're not ready for your ideal job yet, on a paper, you know, get the experience. What is that employer asking for? You know, go and get that experience and come back.
I cannot agree more. Physically cannot agree more. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries, it's a pleasure.
What if somebody wants to follow you online? Where should they go?
I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram.
Well, we don't. Easiest. Do you want everybody following you?
Not really. Instagram is okay.
Okay. Just
so, what
about LinkedIn?
As well. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm same name, Tobias Aziza.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
All right. Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pauline. No worries.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Live from the Caribbean podcast. Make sure to visit our website at www.linkedinlocalcaribbean.com, where you can subscribe to iTunes, Google Play, or via RSS feed, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value with our discussion, we'd appreciate if you share this episode with your friends or rate us on iTunes. That would help us out. If you like this show, you might want to check out our next LinkedIn local event by following the hashtag on LinkedIn. Search #LinkedIn Local Caribbean.